A call to order the Joint Health and Human Service and Records and Public Safety Committee meeting of April 12th, 2023. The time is 3:01. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Romano adopts the agenda.
Support Van Sickle.
Motion from Romano and support from Van Sickle. Please call the roll. Motion to approve the minutes of March 8th, 2023.
So move, Hall.
Support Van Sickle.
Approved by Haw, support by Perna. Any questions? Please call the roll. Now we're moving on to item 5, which is public participation.
Joe on vacation?
Joe got called away out of town.
This is the first opportunity for public participation for those who wish to speak of a maximum of 3 minutes on any agenda item on today's agenda. There will be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting for anyone who wishes to speak on any item.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Dr. Patrick Thompson, and I am the Chair of the Operating Board for the Martha T. Berry facility. In Macomb County, we have a kind of a unique hybrid because every county has to have a social services board, at least a social services board. And for those counties that have county medical facilities, of which we're one of, 33, I think, in the state, we have a dual role. So my colleagues and I have 2 meetings a month on the same day. We interface first with the folks at DHHS at the Central Administration Facility, and then come over to Martha T for the second meeting. I might add that I'm in my 3rd term as your appointee. There are 3 of us, 2 appointed by the Board of Commissioners, 1 by the state, technically by the governor, or by the director of the DHHS. And in my role, and in our role as the operating board, we are Kevin Evans's bosses. I am really effectively his direct supervisor. There isn't anybody above me. Now, he makes more money than I do, but nonetheless, the buck stops with us. I'm here to congratulate you, to thank you for your partnership with us, because we at Martha T. Berry, maybe you don't know this, we are the successors of the old county poor farm. And parts of our building are 70 years old. And recently, we've done a lot of renovation. In fact, if you haven't been over to see what we're doing, you need to come over. Every time I'm here, which is not very often, I always mention that we're kind of the hidden jewel in Macomb County. And I'm very proud to serve in a community that values what we do here in Macomb, and that is taking care of the most vulnerable. We are the social safety net for folks who wouldn't have anywhere else to go. 90% of our residents are Medicaid. So thank you for your participation with us, your partnership with us, as we see this vision and try to live it out responsibly and ethically as citizens of a county that we all know and love so very dearly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak at this time? If not, we'll close the hearing of the public and we'll move on to presentations. First, item A, the Martha T. Berry bi-monthly report by Mr. Evans. Motion to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
Support.
Motion to receive and file by Romano, supported by Van Sickle. Good evening, Mr. Evans.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, for fitting me into the meeting today. It seemed important to communicate as quickly as possible on recent events. But first, a quick recap. In the last 7 years, we've improved in many areas, from a 1-star facility when I first started 7 years ago to 4 stars in overall quality as of today. We have greatly improved the financials of the facility, able to nimbly adapt to circumstances as needed, even when being handcuffed by difficult agreements, legacy costs, and transitions in healthcare. We've consistently stated we would welcome any help, but we will manage if we do not get it. We are a most needed part of the skilled caring community, as evidenced by the fact that we continue to get far more new admissions from other skilled facilities than we do hospitals. Again, a local facility sponsored our foundation event. Competitors don't do that. But today I'm here to talk about money. In 2021, the federal government opened the employee retention credit to government entities that provided health care. We applied and had no expectation as to when or if we were to receive it. The details are in the larger presentation you have in hand, but as of December 20th, 2022, we were still referring to it as monopoly money, hoping to get it late 2023. Matter of fact, as of today, facilities that applied 6 months before we applied still have not received that money. But we did on December 27th, 2022, and wow, was I thankful and excited. I let the county know roughly $6.2 million came in. This notification was met with intense scrutiny by the executive office, after which I was called to a meeting. In that meeting, I was encouraged by those in attendance to not use the $2 million. This was the money that was unanimously approved by the county commissioners in the budget process and appropriated to go into a restricted fund for the MTB HVAC system upgrades. The idea from the attendees at that meeting is that not spending the money, it would allow the money to return to the county coffers. I let meeting attendees know I would consult with my board on this recommendation. In our last MTB board meeting, my board disagreed with this recommendation and motioned to continue to abide by the commissioner's unanimous vote unless the commissioners voted to rescind the appropriation properly and in open meetings. Now to the main point. In the aforementioned meeting, it was made clear to me that both the commission and the executive office would like the $2 million back that was appropriated for the HVAC improvements. If that is your desire, in the spirit of working together and moving forward, I ask the commissioners to vote to rescind the budget amendment. My desire is to have an outstanding and transparent relationship with this body and with the county executive office. To me, it's worth $2 million. We will manage without it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Kraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin, thank you for coming today. I did a very thorough read through of the latest minutes from your latest board meeting, and I have several sections highlighted here because a lot of this was new to me. I was never under the impression that this body would ask for you to give that $2 million back. If that ever does come up to this body, it won't be unanimous like it was to give it to you, because I will be a hard no. We gave that money to you because you presented a need, regardless of you getting $6 million from somewhere else. This body always harps on, go out for grants, get grants, any grants you can get. That's what Mr. Evans did, regardless of us giving $2 million or not. And he got the grant. He got $6 million. This was money that we should have had anyway, I believe, is how that funding works. And it was a mess up with the state or the federal government, however that is. Is that, am I incorrect?
No, actually, in this one, it was the federal government decided that if you were impacted by the rules promulgated during the public health emergency, that they would give you an employee retention credit. The purpose was to try and keep the doors open, keep employees employed, and things like that. They didn't allow it to any government entity in 2020, and in 2021 they did, but then they limited it to 3 quarters. So we applied for those 3 quarters and received it.
Thank you for, like I said, I'm still grasping at all this because a lot of it is coming at me pretty fast because I didn't even know that this was potentially an issue. So as I said before, if that does come to a vote to rescind the $2 million, I will absolutely not be doing that. It's our building. It's our facility. We give them scraps to upkeep that building. $2 million out of a over $1 billion budget is nothing. And we could at least let them keep it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Wallace?
Thank you, Chair. I am in complete agreement with Commissioner Kraft. I had that's the first that I've heard that we would want that money back. That's embarrassing, in my opinion. I feel like we were shown a very long list that added up of needs that's needed by Martha T. Berry. It was a long list. So the $2 million that we agreed to give only fixed a small portion. We continuously talk about how we want to advocate and help the elderly and people that need, and we put a penny in a bucket by giving this $2 million. And now, as we do all the time, say, as Commissioner Kraft said, we tell you to go find grants, go find grants. Even with the grant money, that $2 million is just going to add to fix the list of things that needed to be fixed for this building that we are supposed to help maintain. If we're not doing that, then what are we here for? This is a group of people that need us to advocate for them. And for us to say, which I had no idea that we asked for any money back. I didn't. I wouldn't vote for us to do that. But this is, the people that live in Martha T. Berry come from all of our districts. We are here to advocate for them, to make sure they're living in a comfortable environment. They need heat and air conditioning. They need a roof over their head. And it's up to us to make sure we help maintain that. So I think that that's the first that I've heard that we would want that money back. I will never say, give us that money back. I will not vote for that. And I honestly, being someone that lives in Mount Clemens, I don't know anyone in Mount Clemens that would not say something if we as a body did that. So I hope it doesn't come before us to ask Kevin for this money back. I think that's absolutely terrible. And I still say go out for grant money, because you have a long list of needs that need to be, repaired. And I will continue to advocate for the people that live there. I think that we all need to, because God forbid it's one of our parents or siblings or someone that we love and care about that lives there and depend on Kevin to take care of them. And we're here in this seat saying, give us our money back. I think that's embarrassing. So thank you for that time, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Kev. Unfortunately, I'm on the other side of the spectrum. And let me explain why I am. When Mr. Evans came to us originally and we agreed to the $2 million, Kevin, you were short of ecstatic because you didn't think this commission was going to give up that kind of money to you to help out with the hospital. And you figured with $2 million, you could probably accomplish pretty much what you wanted to do. There were still some other items that needed to be done. Here he has 3 times that amount now, regardless of how he receives it. He received 3 times that amount. And I got to believe, again, this is my own personal opinion. And I'm not looking to put people on the street. $6 million is not going to put anybody on the street. And I'm sure they're still going to have a roof over their head. And I'm sure they're still going to have heat. And I'm sure they're still going to have food. But with $6 million, he's doing 3 times of what he originally was supposed to get, which was $2 million. So I don't see why there is a problem with returning the $2 million we were giving him. He's still way ahead of the game. He's still going to have the money that he's going to need plus. And I think if that money should go back to the general fund, because I guarantee you there's a lot of places out there that $2 million can be applied to. That's my own personal opinion. I don't take it personally, but that's the way I feel. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano. Commissioner Haw?
Thank you. As most of the commissioners, if not all, here know, when Kevin first made the request on the budget from the executive office, the amount was $1 million. I'm the one that fought to raise it to $2 million. There's a whole legality within the JOA and the building authority agreement of what we can or can't do as a county. There's also a whole different array of circumstances when Kevin saying we're asking for the 2 million back, that was a collective agreement in the room with everybody sitting there, and I can assure you, I know exactly what transpired because I was sitting there, and so was the chairman. That wasn't anything that was taken lightly. That wasn't anything that was forced upon him. I'm glad he took it back to his board, but there's a whole set of circumstances, and I regret that all of you weren't participants in the meeting. But it was not a we demand, it was an agreement. Am I stating it correctly that we sat in that room and it was an agreement that the 2 million would be returned and there'd be a newspaper article out celebrating the $6.2 million grant, which we all encourage everybody to do. Am I stating it correctly?
Mostly, I said that looks like the
Be
most
very
elegant.
careful, Kevin, when you say mostly,
I am.
because the comments
And
of the meeting minutes that I have read of the meeting that transpired with your board don't reflect what transpired during those discussions.
I can't
And
make
I
an
would love to
agreement.
address your board someday and make sure they hear both sides of the story. I'm the one that fought
I
to
understand
get
that.
you 2 million. I'm the one that recognized MTB is the jewel in the county. I'm the one that has relatives in MTB. And I sat there, and that was a joint agreement between everybody sitting in this room. As a matter of fact, in these meeting minutes, there's a comment that I aggressively asked when the money was received. You haven't heard aggressive from me. Reverend Thompson has. He's known me my whole adult life, even when I was mayor. I just asked a question, and you said notification was on December 27th, 2022. And in your document, you indicate that the county and this board knew the $6.2 million had been received. I've asked everybody, on administration, the chairman, our attendee at the meeting, they didn't know that. At the same time, there was, and I didn't want to get into this, I really didn't, but my colleagues need to understand there's always two sides to every story. At the same time this was transpiring, us not knowing, this came up at the tour that we were all on when the mentioning of the 6.2 was there, and I said, hey, back up. Where'd that come from? And as a matter of fact, at that time, it was stated that that could only be used for employees. And I went, what? And that's when I had Kyle send you a communication asking. We've since concluded it can be used for a lot of things. Do I think you deserve that money? I still do, 100%. The process here with the JOA and the building agreement needs to be looked at where the county is supplying revenue sources to MTB. I know you could use $8 million. And I said in the meeting, you guys should be doing a happy dance on getting that kind of money. There was nobody more prouder, and you heard me say that when we sat together, that you accomplished that feat. Everything that transpired up to that is what the issue was, and you're well aware of it, because there wasn't any secrets. This was not a closed, that was another reference in here. A closed door meeting, Open Meetings Act could have been violated. None of that happened. I got it right here. You talk about highlighting. My highlighter ran out of yellow. I don't want to get into this step by step. I said I wasn't going to do that. But I just want everybody to know there's two sides to every story. There was a comment made that I did not support MTB by one of the commissioners who came back and later apologized to me for that, and I greatly appreciated that. I have relatives living there. There's nobody that wants that place to be more successful than me. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank
Would
you,
like an
Commissioner
answer?
Hall.
You asked me
Yeah,
to be
you can
clarified.
answer.
Yeah. In that meeting, when it was recommended that I not use the money and allow that money to be returned back to the coffers, my response was, that seems like the most elegant solution, but I'll have to check with my board. I did not make an agreement in that, but I was in consensus with you. And if you ask my board chair, he and I met afterwards, and I made that recommendation to him. You'll also note that I made the recommendation in the board meeting too, and they rejected it. That's why they rejected it. So just in the interest of open transparency on this, I worked to try and do this, and the very thing that I'm doing today is in the same spirit of the conversation that we had, to try and say, let's focus on fixing a problem, not fixing blame, which I can see pretty clearly it can come to that, and all the implications that comes with it, and all the implications in the carefully worded conversations that we had. So I understand fully well that me being in that meeting and the four that was there, I understand full well what the purpose of that was. And I was looking to move forward with it. And that's why I'm here today saying, can we move forward? That's what I was trying to do. If you listen to what I absolutely said, in the spirit of cooperation and transparency, that's what I'm asking.
All in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Zong.
Thank you, Chair. So the board adopted a budget last year and appropriated $2 million. And what I'm understanding and what you're suggesting is that the commission is in a consensus to take back that $2 million. Well, I wasn't in that meeting, so, I think it's also very misleading of you to report this back to us. While I believe that $2 million can be utilized in different ways and in many different programs, I don't think that we should be walking back a budget that we adopted in 2022. And regardless of the $6.2 million that Martha T. Berry has received. So, this is all very disturbing to me, and I just want to make that clear to you that that's not my intention, and I wasn't in that meeting. With that said, I would like to ask you if you have an update for us. When we came there to do a tour, there was an issue with the doors being locked in the fire marshal. Can you please explain to the other commissioners, and since then, what have you done? And what is your plan for this $6.2 million?
Thank you. Last year, we received a citation from the fire marshal that said that, and this was a quote from the supervisor of the fire marshals, "Your facility is by far one of the safest facilities in terms of taking care of residents, but it no longer meets the code because we have to allow every door that is not in a dementia unit openable to anyone to leave." And so we had multiple discussions with them and said, we have dementia residents that are confused and are at risk in the entire population. They said that does not matter. So we have to retrofit all of our stairwell doors and all of our exterior doors. To be able to do that safely, it's going to be a 2-year project. It's going to roughly cost $500,000 this year, and somewhere between $700,000 and $900,000 next year. So one of the discussions on December 20th was actually specific to that with our attorney when he said, "Can you do this?" And I explained to him, well, in the third or fourth quarter of 2023, we should be getting a lump sum adjustment from the state, and we're hoping to get some employee retention credit money, and we can do that. Otherwise, we're going to float the cost of that inside our repair and maintenance program, which we have, roughly $800,000, Jeff? So that's what we'd be doing this year. And then we'd be taking care of the rest of it next year. We've already, already spent probably $300,000 towards that in of itself. Now, you also asked, what are we doing with the $6 million? We're paying back a lot of the debt that we had to the county. If you recall, the county was very gracious in allowing us to slow pay our OPEB and our building use. And so we have to pay that back, which was, Steve would have the exact number, but I think it was right around 2.8 is what we had by the time we got that money in. And then we did essentially do some retention things with our staff, with some bonuses. And the rest we were hoping to be able to spread out over the projects that we had. The $2 million for the HVAC was roughly half of what we need for that. And if you do the math with that and with our large door system, we're going to have to make some accommodations. But again, we will manage. It is what we have done. It's been a privilege to be able to do this in so many ways, even with the difficult conversations we've had. They have been honest and open discussions, in all of that. So I want that to be no different than what we're talking about today in every way.
Thank you, Kevin. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Commissioner.
You came to us with a need. We addressed the need. With the addition of this money, I see that the need isn't really there anymore. The county has other needs across food banks, other good causes. The next time you come with a need, I'm going to have to evaluate that with what happened with this need. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Sickle. Commissioner Nard.
Thank you. First of all, let me apologize to my colleagues for being late. I just want to make sure I understand what's going on. I know that we voted to give you the $2 million, but you received $6.2 million and did not notify us of that. So we're still, as a board thinking that you need that. And I heard some of the comments as I was coming in. I could hear on the mic, and I agree with some of those comments. But my take on it is, as Commissioner Van Sickle just said, we have, I know that Macomb County is very generous to taking care of its people and all the responsibilities that we're assigned to. So I have no question when our executive or our board chair makes a decision to rescind something or do something. Me, as a commissioner, knowing these gentlemen, don't second guess that, because I know, because they've been very generous in the past. I've seen it. I've lived in this county for over 20 years, and they've always been very charitable. But to hear something like that is kind of misleading, and I kind of understand where they're coming from. I have relatives that are in nursing homes and things, and they don't get taken care of half as good as Martha T. Berry takes care of their residents. I do appreciate that, but just knowing now that you have the $6 million, I'm not upset with the executive or anybody that if that's what they asked you to do. And I just wish that it wouldn't have to come out as if they're just snatching something back or walking backwards on a promise that they made. I'm wondering if we would have voted to give you $2 million, or would you have asked us for $2 million if we'd known that you had the $6 million? I don't think that we would have. It would have happened. So whatever this board decides, whatever the department heads decide in this matter, I'm going to support that. But I do support Martha T. Berry 100%. But I just wanted to make sure that I was hearing what I was hearing as far as that you received $6 million and did not inform this board that you received that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Nard. I do have a question. When did you guys actually find out that you were approved for the grant and for the amount?
In March of 2022, I think we started the process, and we didn't know approval.
Right.
What happens is you have to apply for it, and then you have to treat it as if it's a receivable.
Right. My question is when did you find out that you did get approved for it?
When we got the checks on the 27th.
Okay, so that's when
We'd actually put in over a dozen calls from July to try and find out what the status was, because people that applied 6 months prior to us still hadn't received it.
So when you came to the board last year in October, you did not know for sure that you were going to receive these funds. You were hopeful that you were going to receive these funds, but
was
you did not know you were going to receive these funds. So
I did
you were
not.
just covering, okay.
Well, due to the transient nature of a lot of the grants and how they adjusted things, I couldn't count on the money. I mean, I hoped that would be there.
Right.
And even as of December 20th, I was talking to our attorney saying, I hope we're going to get some, but that's monopoly money for us. I'm certain that we're going to get probably roughly $2 million on our adjustments, somewhere between 1.8 and $2 million, as far as we can tell from the state. But that won't happen until November or December of next year. Probably. I don't think we'll get it earlier than that.
I have a question. I don't know if the chair or the vice chair might be able to answer this question. So normally, if let's say the Department of Roads, for instance, received like a $20 million grant, would you take back $20 million from their budget if they received that grant, or would you just expect them to utilize that grant funding to do more road projects? I guess that would be my question for you.
Well, they would. Well, they would, first of all, bring it to the Board of Commissioners for a budget amendment because they received a grant, and then we'd decide where that money is going to be used. That wasn't done in this case, at least not yet.
So they would come to a budget amendment before they apply for the grant or after they receive the grant?
When they receive the grant. And this really wasn't a grant. This was a tax credit that they
Right.
received. It wasn't a grant. It's a big difference. It was a tax credit, just like when you apply for a tax credit, say you got energy heating grant you're applying for through the federal government, you bought some equipment at your
Right.
house.
Well, the same, I mean, I guess that you could use that the same as any
So
other
there was an
department in
assumption-
Macomb County
There was an
also.
assumption, so when you do that, you're assuming you're gonna get that money back, you're gonna receive that money in a tax credit back to you. And they obviously knew they were anticipating receiving because they put it on their books as gonna be receivable.
Okay.
And it would have been good to know that throughout the course of the year. But to answer your specific question, is, the board will make a decision when they receive grants, it's going to that, what we're gonna do with it.
Right, but if they receive a grant for a specific department,
Yeah.
then it has to be used within that department, so we might be
Yeah,
able to
generally
say
speaking, like
what
today,
they're using for
like
that
on your-
department, but we're not gonna say, okay, we're gonna, now that you received this grant, we're gonna take $20 million out of your budget to put back into the general fund, to, cross off that grant. We would just, we'd approve the new projects that they're planning with that grant money.
Generally speaking, yeah, they would probably stay within that budget area.
Okay. I do kind of agree with Commissioner Kraft, too, one of the things that he said, and Commissioner Wallace. I was aware that you guys might be receiving this money, and I have talked to the chair and the vice chair in regards to it, especially the chair. But I wouldn't say I was one of them that was like, yes, I think we should ask for this money back. I don't want to be, that was never stated from me. I heard their opinions. I never actually voiced a solid opinion on my own. I've done a lot of research and thinking about this and going back and reading some old minutes and things like that. And with you guys receiving this $6.2 million, if you came to me in October and said, hey, I want $2 million to do a project, I would probably say, no, you just received $6.2 million. With that said, though, this was approved in October by the commission, sitting up here at that time, which was not me, and they at that time thought there was a need. And I'm hoping that you use this $6.2 million so you don't have to come for a while and ask us for money again. I'm not going to say I'm going to take this $2 million back. I don't think I would agree with removing this $2 million either, even though I do understand there's other places in the budget where we could use that money. I don't think I would necessarily support that right now. But at the same time, like I said, if you come to me in the next couple of years, if I'm still sitting here, I would probably say no, because you just received $6.2 million. So, Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Brown clarified it. You mentioned it was a grant, but this was a ERC, correct? Employee Retention Credit. So I just wanted to be clear that this is not a grant, and they received it based on the number of employees and staff people that they had. So I'm not sure why this is even a discussion. With all due respect to everyone's opinion, like Chair Lucido said, we passed this in 2020 2022. It's now 2023. And so just going back and, taking the money that we already appropriated, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know why we're having this discussion. So it would be a no for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Perna.
Thank you. Are we opening up a new door here? When we approved the budgets for all the departments, and 6 months later, or a year earlier, they've applied for a grant. And I think, and I'm neutral right now on this, which way I'm gonna vote on this, if this even comes up for a vote. But when we approve the budgets, there's no strings attached that you have to go out and get a grant or not apply for a grant. In this particular case, you applied a year ago, you got the grant in October, am I correct?
Get December,
December, rather.
December 27.
Are we opening up the door for all other departments? Before we approve any budgets, do we have to now go to those departments and saying, by the way, are you having any grants pending right now? Is that gonna set a precedence now for each department before we approve their budget? This is something we gotta consider, because this is gonna open up a can of worms in the future. If we approve grants, or if we approve the budgets, and then they get a grant, how much time do we have before we can take that grant back, if we start taking the grants back? I think we're opening up a real wild door here that could be more embarrassing. That all the departments are saying, well, we'll go for the approved by the board, and why go for a grant, because we're gonna have to give it back. So I think this could be opening up something that could be very challenging in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Perna. And one comment really quick to what Commissioner Perna just said too. This isn't the first time that this has kind of happened, I feel like, since I've been sitting here, that you guys approved a budget sitting at this table, and then there's like this change where you guys want to change it without it being even like a recommendation from that department. Like somewhere along the line between us and administration, they're saying, no, this shouldn't be approved for whatever reason, and now, but it was approved. It was approved by this board in October, so it seems weird, like, why do we even do a budget if we're not gonna follow what's in the budget? Commissioner Ha.
I'm hoping my next statement will clarify that. Kevin talked about transparency. This was not a demand or a board action that transpired in these discussions. This was a recommendation, a resolution to the receipt of $6 million after we had approved 2. There's still a whole process that has to be followed with budget amendments, everybody's saying, I'm not gonna vote on this, or I am gonna vote on this. We have nothing to vote on.
Right.
This was a recommendation that was agreed upon in the meeting. It was not forced upon anybody. It was not a threat to anybody. It was a way of getting a great big attaboy for him and his team on getting the $6.2 million. Quite frankly, when I saw this on the agenda, I said, why are we having this on the agenda? There is nothing to vote on by any of us at this particular juncture. So to assume that the $2 million is coming back or not coming back is really very premature to our process, to the county executive's process, and as mentioned, to the entire budgetary process. So he heard me say it. I was ecstatic when I heard he got $6 million. It was the way we learned of it. Whether it comes back or not, that has to come in front of the full board under our own budgetary process. So there's been no decision on whether or not it should or should not. And I'm going to say it again. I was the one that fought to raise it from 1 to 2 million. there isn't anybody in this room, well, I take that back. Any of the commissioners, maybe their board doesn't know, but Kevin knows I did that, against the recommendation of the executive. And I sat through these discussions. It's always good to have, as my chairman will say, more than one set of ears hearing the discussion. So we still have an entire process that needs to be followed before they can get it or not get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Haw. And you are right, this isn't, we're right, we're not voting on anything this evening, I understand that. But I do think that it's important because we know that when those discussions are had, it's gonna be probably you and Commissioner Brown that are having those discussions on what to bring, to put with the administrator, to what to put on the agenda. So just to hear our voice and our opinion, I think is important because we are all trying to work together as one united body, so.
Agree.
Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Haas summarized it well. The whole discussion was, during the budget process, there was a lot of angst about even coming up with $1 million, then we added $2 million to it. It was a difficult time because we were trying to stay within the constraints of a budget number that we were trying to do. It was difficult. Then we found out discovered that he had $6.2 million that he was anticipating receiving. I thought my board would want to know that. They'd be interested to know that when they were going through the budget process because we couldn't fund everything that the board wanted to do. So the discussion was, well, what do we do when you got $6.2 million plus you got the $2 million here? Maybe my board needs to take a look at that and decide what they want to do with it. Maybe they would have a different opinion had you known you had $6.2 million in your pocket and, you know, the board wasn't aware of that. So we wanted to have a discussion about that. There's nothing that this board's going to do without a collective decision of the board. That's absolutely true. I mean, they would have to come here and do that. And there's another complication. The $6.2 million makes it easier now for Martha T. Berry to do the repairs they need now, immediately, rather than, because at $2 million, though we set it aside for Martha T. Berry in the last budget cycle, not knowing about the $6 million, they still have to amend the JOA because technically Macomb County cannot give them money to work on their facilities. We have to amend the JOA if we decide we want to do that, to give it to them. So they've got more flexibility now than they had before. And it's something that the whole board has to discuss. And this is the first time that the board has had a discussion about it. First time it's been notified by the Martha T. Berry that they received the $2 million in an official way. So,
Right.
Communication's key. And so I just wanted to let you know that there's nothing that I could do or any other commissioner could do to develop and say that the board is going to do anything without a collective vote of this board to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Grott?
Thank you. I just want to say this is all new to me, but it's always good to listen to both sides of the story and what happened, what took place. For the future, some kind of agreement between both sides, I think would be great when we giving $2 million. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we will please vote on receiving and filing. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Evans.
Commissioners. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll move on to item number 7, which is, we'll start with item A, which is a budget amendment for veteran services contracted for psychological evaluations of $100,000. Motion to recommend to full board.
So moved.
Motion made by Zong, supported by Kraft. And Ms. Rios? Hi, Laura, how are you?
Hi. So just at the end of last year, in December, we received a bill. We contract with 2 doctors in the area to do evaluations for hearing loss, because that is the number 1 claim to the VA, and we contract with the doctor that does PTSD exams to do our opinion letters for us. We received a bill like December 15th after y'all quit meeting, and it was like the holiday, and wow, we were shocked with the bill. So we didn't overspend our budget overall, we overspent the category. So what I'm trying to do is proactively transfer money from our fund balance to this fund code, which would be contract services, and proactively do that, forecasting that we're doing more and more exams every year, and we could possibly do as much as we did last year. So that's the whole purpose of this. We have not spent it yet. It's just, we're forecasting.
So all you're asking today is to transfer money from one area of your budget to another, correct?
The fund balance
The fund balance, okay,
to the budget.
yes,
Because
okay,
it's not in the budget.
right. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Laura.
Aye.
I'm famous for I don't like surprises, I don't give surprises. I'm trying to wrap my head around, how could you get a bill for $100,000 and had no idea that that was the amount that was even close to that amount? That you didn't, somebody didn't keep tabs and say, listen, we spent $25,000, we spent $30,000, $100,000?
It wasn't 100,000. It actually was less than 100,000. And we didn't catch it, and finance didn't catch it because they didn't have their little thing that they do in their budget system to, when we
How
send in
much was it for?
honestly, I think it was like 40, 50.
I'm sorry,
Their
I
last bill
can't,
was like 40 or 50,000.
well then,
But the thing is that's what put us over, but we not knowing that we were already over. So we had a little issue. We now fixed it. We are doing monthly billing versus quarterly billing because they were on quarterly billing before. We try to keep track of all the referrals, but I will tell you, just because I referred you to a doctor doesn't mean you're going to go there. And so we don't know until we get a bill and our reports that they actually went to the doctor.
so would it behoove you to, when you do send me for medical exam, which I probably need mental, would it behoove you to find out from the doctor when I do report that the doctor mentions back to you, hey, I have patient Romano here and I'm evaluating him. Have you decided to do that now, or are you still going to wait for all the bills to come in?
We get that now. The problem is last year, we were only getting the bill, the invoice once a quarter. We were getting the report immediately that you were seeing and that I can process your
But you
disability
didn't get the
claim.
bill.
But we weren't getting the bills until quarterly. So I have one person doing bills and I have 9 people doing counseling. So you see how there was a lot of moving parts and not everybody talking to each other, but we have this pretty much a good process under control now.
Is there standard billing for mental health for one of the veterans going in? I mean, does he charge you $250 for an evaluation, or does it depend on the, you understand my question?
I
Is
do
there a set
understand your
amount that the
question.
doctors charge?
So we have two doctors. There's a set amount for hearing loss, which I think is $200. Off the top of my head, I believe it's a $200 to do a hearing exam
Okay.
and an opinion letter. They do charge us extra if your ears have to be cleaned. Our PTSD exams are $2,000 because that's 2 to 3 visits to do that examination. And it's not treatment, it's just the exams to come up with the diagnosis. And now we are forcing them. Originally, we did this whole process under my MVAA state grant 3 years ago. So we started off with the grant and we used way more than what the grant allowed. So then we transferred it under my budget and we're using other things for the grants that we get from MVAA. So with this amount that we are charged, we're charged $2,000 for a veteran that is uninsured. So now we are double checking and verifying that they cannot bill their insurance if they have insurance. As you well know, VA is not insurance. So, you know, they don't take Medicare, they don't take TRICARE, so they don't take any government insurance. But if a veteran has Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're gonna bill their Blue Cross first, and then what's left is coming to us. Because I want to be the no wrong door process of helping this veteran to get his disability and not be a brick wall. So we have changed our agreement that we had. It went through the process in January, and we changed the agreement, and the executive's office approved it. And we've updated our agreements with both of the contracted doctors to make sure that they bill their insurances if they're available. So sometimes we're not billed $2,000.
So in lieu of as the chair mentioned, you're just taking funds from your budget and transferring it, or paying it out of your budget right now, that $40,000 or $50,000. However, you're looking to transfer $100,000. Is this for future care?
Yes, it's for this coming year. because we don't know how much we're gonna spend. But last year, we spent $178,000 between the two doctors, and we budgeted only 70.
Laura, how much do you have in your budget?
A lot. 2 million. My working budget is 2 million, my fund balance is over 2 million.
I'm just asking because that sounds like a lot of excess money.
I don't have any excess money in my operating budget. The excess money sits in my fund balance.
Well, even your fund balance, what,
But that was also that's going back to 2008. The leftovers every year from 2008 go into the fund balance. As you well know, we forecast we're gonna spend X, Y, and Z.
Right.
We don't know how many people are gonna die and be eligible for that death benefit that we offer. We don't know, I call it the relief fund, which is our emergent need fund. We budgeted for like 3 years, we budgeted 70 or 80,000 or 130,000 for the emergency relief fund. And because of all the other federal assistance, like SARA funds and all these other assistance, our committee only probably spent 30 or 40,000 in 2021 and 22. Now all those funds have dried up. They're rocking it. They're gonna spend probably more than what they were budgeted. But that's where the fund balance comes from. They don't spend it all, it goes in the fund balance. We budget so many people are gonna die and be eligible for the burial benefit. If it's not spent, it goes into the fund balance.
so it goes back in the fund balance? Answer my question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano. Commissioner Van Sickle?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Laura. Let me see if I understand this right. You budgeted a certain amount for the category, and then because you got quarterly billing instead of monthly billing, you sort of were surprised by how much you were actually spending, and so now you're forecasting if you keep spending at sort of the higher rate for the rest of the year, you'll need 100,000.
Correct.
So the 100,000 is covering what you've spent plus what you
No,
perceive you'll spend?
no, that was last calendar year. We're done. That was taken out of
Okay.
my budget. But the thing is getting a bill at December 15th, which, hey, it's Christmas time. I wasn't paying attention that they hadn't billed us yet. And I was busy with the tax program and teaching 46 volunteers. It kind of shocked me that, I got this bill and it was late in the game and late in the year. So it was covered under our budget. We had the money in our budget. It wasn't just in that fund code. It came from all of the other sources in our budget, from not spending all our money in the relief fund and spending money in all the other funds. But over time, what happened is they have this, I don't know if Steve wants to explain it, but in the budget system, that if my secretary goes to do a check request and there's no funds in there, she gets a little memo back saying, nope, got to transfer funds, and that wasn't in there on this category. For some reason, it wasn't in there on that category, and it just kept allowing it to kind of overspend. But we did have the money in other locations. I'm just trying to forecast for this year. None of this 100,000 is going back for last fiscal year or calendar year. It's for this year. And I'm just forecasting if we do the same thing we did last year, I want to be prepared this year.
But because of the higher expenses that you have seen so far, you're anticipating that the budget will need the extra 100,000.
Thanks to my advertising budget and being able to advertise as well as we do with our other grant money that we get, we are seeing more and more and more customers.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing because we're helping every vet. So I am forecasting, and that's all I'm doing, and I'm hoping our advertising that's going to happen this year is going to bring more veterans to come to us. And, Commissioner Romano might come see us one day. And,
He
for
needs
his
help.
hearing loss, not for mental, but for hearing loss. But anyway, that's the goal, forecast to be able to, take care of the
Okay,
veterans.
and to quote one of our other commissioners who's no longer here, when you went out and contracted with these doctors, I assume that it's under some kind of a contract?
Yes,
Were those contracts bid out?
no.
Why not?
Because it was very specific to veterans. And I looked for probably 10 or 15 doctors that specialized in PTSD, and I only found one in our county. That's it. That we're not affiliated with the VA.
Okay,
So we have a vet center that treats veterans, and that's paid for by the VA and the VA employees. We have other programs that are done by the VA, paid for by VA employees, or, by VA. I found one, so I didn't bid it out. And remember, the first grant that we got was only for 10,000. So we were gonna help like 5 veterans. And that was 4 years ago. I believe that was probably 2019. But between the two, actually, it was probably 2018, because in 2019, we moved it to our millage money.
well, I'm glad your problem is you're getting more people
We're
from
helping
the
more.
advertising campaign and more usage. We need to do more to help the vets.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Sickle. And I have to agree with Commissioner Van Sickle. I'm happy also that these advertisements are working and that more vets are coming to you guys for the services that you offer and provide to our residents, because I do think it's really important. And I'm really happy that they're going and receiving these evaluations so they can get the help that they need if they do have PTSD. So, anyone else have anything? Can we please vote? Move on to item B, which is a budget amendment for Children and Family Service Division for Administration and Children and Families of Head Start Grant for $43,821. Can I get a motion to recommend a full board?
So moved by NARS.
Support Hall.
Moved by Nard, supported by Hall. Hello.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. The item before you reflects an increase of $43,821 in quality funding for the Head Start program. The funding will be used in its entirety for staff wages. The amendment will adjust the budget in one solution to accurately reflect the Head Start award amount. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Seeing no speakers, please vote. All right, so that was simple.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item C, a budget amendment for Macomb Community Action, Community Service Block Grant. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here.
Motion to support the full board.
For the full board.
Commissioner Hall, who supported?
Support.
Nard. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. You have before you a budget amendment request for our Community Service Block Grant in the amount of $76,870. Our CSBG grant goes for our overall operations as well as direct services to low-income residents of Macomb County.
Any questions? Seeing none, please vote. Moving on to item D, budget amendment for Macomb Community Action Supportive Services for Veterans and Families in the amount of $86,968. Can I get a motion to full board?
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Madam Chair. An item before you to approve the budget for the supportive services for veterans and families in the amount of $86,968. We are contracted to cover Macomb County through an agreement with Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency, and this will cover the time period of April 1st through December 31st of '23.
Any questions? Seeing none, please vote. And now we'll move on to the MDHHS Weatherization Department of Energy grant for $111,985. Can I get a motion for full board?
Burn support.
A motion and support, Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Madam Chair. An item before you to approve a budget amendment for an increase in the amount of $111,985 due to an increase in the grant amount from our funder. And this would be to provide weatherization services for low-income Macomb County residents.
Any questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
We'll move on to budget amendment for Macomb Community Action Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program in the amount of $144,102. Motion to full board.
Motion to move to full board.
Support.
Motion and support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The final, for me, budget amendment to increase the LIHEAP, which is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which is part of our weatherization program, in the amount of $144,102 due to an increase in the budget allocation from the funder.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. I believe we've asked this before. Do you have an estimate of how many homes that you might be able to help with this amount?
The LIHEAP funds are used in conjunction with our DOE, our Department of Energy funds, which are also used with our new bill funds, which is part of the new funding that we're getting. So a lot of these fundings are braided. Typically, we have average job costs per unit. With our regular weatherization funds, that's around $8,600. LIHEAP's used to supplement that. We can use up to, say, $5,000 or $6,000 with those funds. So this will help supplement probably 24 jobs that we do over the next fiscal year.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions?
Hi, I just have a
Commissioner
quick
Nard, sorry.
question for you. These particular grants, are they just strictly for low income? For instance, if I have a resident who she works, but because of the gas prices being high and food being high, she may have had missed a couple days of work because her kid was sick. Would she be able to qualify for something like this, or would she be over the income?
We do help a lot of working families through a lot of our services through the agency. There are federal poverty guidelines that all of these programs fall under. So depending on the number of people in the home, because of COVID and other things over the last several years, a lot of those things have increased. The best thing for her to do would be to contact us, and we can see the income for the household in general and see where they qualify. And if not, we can always try and refer to something else. But we do help a lot of working families. It's not as strict as it may sound.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Let you off easy, Joe.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to Records and the Public Safety Committee.
We need any adjournment, we don't need any 5-minute adjournment. We just continue with Records and Public Safety Department recommendation. Item A is an agreement amendment from the Sheriff's Office for the Township of Washington Law Enforcement Services for $255,998. We have Commander Abro, and I believe this is something that's been done with many municipalities. I need a motion, recommend this to full
So
board.
move, Hall.
Support,
Van
Nucio.
Sickle.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hall, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Commander, you're up.
All right, good afternoon, Board Chair, Commissioners. It's a motion to approve an agreement between the Township of Washington to provide additional staffing for law enforcement services. The contract to begin May 1st of '23 to end December 31st of '24 in the amount of $255,998. This is no cost to the county. This will increase staffing by 1 additional deputy to work the afternoon shift for traffic enforcement for the township.
I see no speakers. We have a motion in support. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you, Commander. Item B is a contract, David Fischer Consulting LLC, professional services for prospecting and preparing grant proposals and applications for the prosecutor's office in the amount of $35,000. Don Fassard, Chief Assistant Prosecuting Attorney. I need a motion to recommend to full board.
Support Perna.
I have a motion by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Perna. Whoop, you've changed. Oh, Prosecutor Lucido.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I think this is an elementary and a routine. I hope it is. I want to thank you for giving us that opportunity back in November, and again, revisiting that in January, I believe. And so the contract has been reviewed, I hope, by the board, and I'm asking for a motion in support to put it on full agenda.
Thank you, Prosecutor. I see no speakers. We have a motion in support. Please vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you, Prosecutor. Item C is a budget amendment. Again, Prosecutor's Office for 4 part-time temporary positions in the amount of $86,264. We have Director of Finance, Mr. Schmiegel, and Mr. Lucido. I need a motion to move this to full board,
So
please.
move, Hall.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hall, supported by Commissioner Nard. And Mr. Schmiegel or Prosecutor Lucido? Mr. Schmiegel.
By all means, Steve, join
Go
me.
ahead, Mr.
Yes,
Schmiegel.
I think this is fairly straightforward in the language. Prosecutor Lucido can explain the need for the positions and what they'll be doing, but I think the motion as it's written is relatively straightforward. We're taking money from fund balance and appropriating it in personnel. I will point out in the middle section on the first page, I apologize for the typographical error. The amount in the last sentence should be the $86,264. It's currently $82,264, so.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schmiegel, you're saying it should be 82?
86,264.
That's what we have, 86,264.
But in the last sentence of that middle section, it says 82,264.
Okay, I got it.
So I'll just turn the
Got it.
floor over to the prosecutor.
Thank you. Mr. Prosecutor, you want to add to that or anything?
86 or
Please.
We have
82?
speakers.
Thank you. I appreciate your indulgence again for this. As he's indicated, there is a adjustment because it's been now already a quarter that's been used up. But all that being said, part of the the information, not the motion itself, we're not changing the motion, but the information that's been presented, I'd ask that to remove the sentence. In fact, I did send something to you. Funding for these positions was not appropriated. That's incorrect. It was appropriated. This board, in fact, did the appropriation. So I'd ask that that be stricken from the record. And you have to remember where I came from. I'm a detailed guy regarding records. Without records, all of this is for naught. Number two, also the detailed description, the county prosecutor need not post these positions because these are submitted before the recommendation and the form to fill. So I'm just asking that I just do the form to fill. There's no need for a part-time temporary position. It ends at the end of the year. You fill them and you get them done so that when people leave or sick, out on maternity, that immediately they come in. And then the last thing is I want to be in conformity with every other job description that's in this county that is in my office. It's any other duties that are assigned by the prosecutor. That's in every single one of my job descriptions. Because if we need somebody to do something, if it's not in there, then they'd be working out of class. So thank you for allowing me to clear the record up.
We have speakers. I have Commissioner Perna.
Who? Oh, I didn't hear my name, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did say Commissioner Perna. We did have somebody.
Just for clarification, this has been going on now for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And we're not approving 86,000 because it was already approved in November or December and then reaffirmed in January. I think I'm correct on that. And the second thing is, these jobs do not have to be posted now. Am I correct that the prosecutor has the authority to hire now, or do these have to be posted?
Anybody want to speak from the executive's office or the HR department? Because I don't want to come back.
You want us to vote on that, Pete?
I'd like it. Please.
I'm not going to comment on the HR process, but I do not believe that the funds were appropriated in the budget. They were added to a schedule in the front of the appropriations ordinance, but that schedule doesn't add, and you add all the sections to it. So the amount that's appropriated in the budget currently for the prosecutor's office includes all the positions except the 8. So this would be an additional appropriation to the prosecutor's budget.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Perna?
No.
Did not?
Didn't even speak to the issue.
Say it in Italian.
Go Congrats.
Wasn't it already approved in December and reaffirmed in January? So we don't need to reapprove it today. It was already
The
approved.
dollars for those 8 part-time positions that were listed in the position schedule in the budget ordinance, those dollars were not appropriated. That schedule doesn't foot, if we call it. So there are no dollars in the budget for those 8 part-time positions or these 4.
But in January, when we reaffirmed it, wasn't reaffirmed in January?
The
Mr.
schedule
Spiegel,
still
I
didn't
think-
add up.
I think that's not your expertise. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's within your
Yeah,
finance. I don't know if that's,
I don't believe there's money in the budget for these positions. Relative to whether they need to be posted, that's out of my wheelhouse, that's an HR question.
But aren't these uncompensated positions, for the first quarter is already over, it was in the budget for 2022. It was none funded because these positions remained open. So going into '23, the first quarter is over, it was already approved for the 2023 budget.
No, I'm going back to the money for these part-time positions is not in the appropriated budget of the prosecutor's office for 2023.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
well, have other speakers, you're welcome to come back for a second round. I have Commissioner Hall.
Thank you for that question. Putting all that aside, this puts it in the budget and allows him to fill 4 part-time positions. So we don't have to get back into that, maybe at a later date, into that discussion of what was appropriated in the budget and not. This puts all of that to bed. He gets 4 full-time positions. They are funded. They are approved. He can go out and get them tomorrow, for all I care.
Well, that question wasn't answered.
Thank you. Yeah, Pete thanked me, so we're good. That's all I have, Chairman.
I have
Thank you.
Lucido.
I
No, I'm
actually,
sorry,
my
Commissioner
question's for
Lucido,
the
not
finance
Prosecutor
director.
Lucido. Commissioner Lucido.
So I'm new, so you'll have to excuse me. So these positions were approved in the budget in October, but they were not actually, like, the financial aspect of it was not added. The board approved these positions, but the financial part was not actually placed in the budget
Correct.
line items,
We
right?
Yes, we refer to it as being unfunded.
All right, right. Is it common practice for when the board approves a position or something for it to go in the budget unfunded? I guess that's my question.
We have had unfunded positions in the last 2 or 3 budget cycles. So we'll say we have 6 accountants in my office, we're not gonna fund, we're gonna leave one of them vacant, we'll unfund it. Then we can come back next year and decide whether we wanna add money to the budget or request money in the budget to fill that position. That's not necessarily an uncommon practice in the last 2 or 3 years here.
So my question is, if we approve something for the budget, finance has the ability to be like, no, we're not gonna fund this. That's my question.
Not sure I'm following your question. So
So if the board approved 8 positions for the prosecutor's office, for 8 part-time positions, and finance says, you know, it comes to finance, we approved it here at the budget table, you know, it was voted on unanimously, there was 13-0 vote, 13 yeses, and then it comes to you guys are the ones that write the budget all up for us, you know, make it look nice and add all the numbers up for us. You guys have the discretion to be like, no, we're gonna make this line item unfunded, even though this
no,
board,
that's done during the budget cycle.
okay,
So the unfunded positions are indicated during the budget cycle. So when the board appropriates or approves the budget in the fall of one year for the next, they're appropriating dollars for the funded positions. We
okay.
don't go back afterwards and say, oh, we don't want to fund that
But
one.
that's what I'm saying, because
Right.
it seemed to me like this board here, going back and watching the meeting, approved these positions, but then you're saying that they were unfunded positions. The board didn't vote to make them unfunded, though.
The board, I would say the board they didn't fund them. You could look, it didn't fund them, unfunded them. to me, it's the
Well,
same.
and that's why I guess I'm asking for
same
clarification,
scenario.
so when this comes up in budget for me next year, I
Correct.
have to clarify that if we approve something, that we want to make sure we are approving it to be a funded item.
Right,
So
the
we need
bo-
to specify that when we make our motions.
Right.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner? Commissioner Lucido?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I guess we don't. I have Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Lucido, I believe the thinking was we put the items in the budget because there were some positions in the prosecutor's office that that were in the budget, funded in the budget, that had not been actually filled with people. And so there was money unspent, and the intent was to spend it for these positions.
Right.
And that's why the money was in the budget, but it wasn't in the budget on this line item. It was in the budget on other line items.
No, I think they just line itemed it unbudgeted.
Yeah,
What I
know.
understand,
It
so,
was unfunded,
yeah.
but
unfunded.
the money was actually other places unspent. So we weren't actually increasing the budget. He had other positions that he hadn't hired yet.
Right, no, I understand that,
Okay. But the question I have is for Mr. Smeagol, when do we get the budget? When do we get the official budget?
I expect by the end of the month. We're in the process of finalizing. It's a little bit of a tedious process, unfortunately.
I appreciate that, but I was wondering if I'm glad it's going to be before the end of the year,
It will be.
or before November when we're working on the next one.
It will be.
We need to run a little faster on this.
Commissioner, that's for another time. This is regarding
Thank you.
prosecutor's
Thank you,
office.
Chair.
Anybody else wishes to speak? I see no other speakers. We have a motion and support. Please vote.
And here comes Miss Vicky.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Let's go to item,
I can answer your question.
item 10.
Once I'm recognized.
Did Vicky
Sorry,
want to
Vicky,
speak?
it's all gone. Past that, we're past that.
I can ask the part-time question, but I'll go sit back down if you'd like me to.
Thanks, Vic.
Item 10 was waived by committee chairs. It's an agenda item related to Macomb Community Action Programs, relocating. And number A is a budget amendment, Macomb Community Action Program relocation, $545,677. Mr. Smeagol, Director of Finance, is going to talk to us. I need a motion to recommend this to full board. That would be 10A and 10B, please.
Support Hall.
It's been moved by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Hall, and we have Director of Finance, Mr. Smeagol. Oops, Vicky, please, I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to recognize me whether you want to or not.
Vicky, I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Romano.
Go ahead.
He's
I
trying.
apologize.
You know I don't give up.
Go ahead.
Quick point of information, those positions are temporary part-time positions, so no, they do not need to be posted. And once it's approved at full board, he can seek out his attorneys.
Don't ever try to keep Vicky
I will-
quiet.
Well, you know, I like to
No, thank you for
give
the
correct
information. No, we appreciate it.
When I can.
Thank you. No, we appreciate that.
Sorry, I will try to be quick here. I'd just like to give a quick overview on the following couple of items, and there will be more items coming to the board eventually, hopefully. But I think as many commissioners know, over the past couple years, or you may have seen in the paper recently, we have been working on plans to vacate the Washington Elementary FRC. Mount Clemens does not desire to keep leases in that building, and some of that was mutually agreeable. So we've been in the process of trying to relocate the personnel and programs from MCA that are within that facility. It's complicated, moving a lot of people. There's over 50 employees there, many different programs, and there are a lot of moving pieces, and those personnel are moving into different buildings. We have Head Start personnel in there that we're looking at acquiring a different facility that'll hopefully come back to the board. But we're also moving some of their personnel over into the VERC in vacant space that we have there. And then we also have personnel from that facility moving into weatherization. So there are a number of different contracts, purchases, expenses tied to these moves. Some of them are internal. F&O is doing some of the work. Some of them are more expensive, over the $35,000. And so we're trying to bring these items to the board, some of them being combined, even though people are going into different locations. So I apologize if it seems confusing. It's somewhat just the nature of relocating personnel.
into different areas. So that's what we're looking for today is a budget amendment to access some funds to get some of those pieces started, as well as then a carpet purchase. So with that, I will turn it over to Steve, who can provide more details.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Mr. Schmiegel. We have some questions here from some of the commissioners. Commissioner Song?
Thank you, Chair. Vicki, is this the building where the Macomb Foster Closet is?
Yes, it is.
And they're not a part of the county, they were leasing that building from the county?
Correct, yes. We had the main lease with the school district, and then we had some other lease partners within
Do you
there.
know what's gonna happen to that? Because I know they serve a lot of foster children, and there was some concern about this building not being
Correct.
leased.
From what I understand, I believe it was in the paper, so I don't believe I'm speaking out of turn. But he is looking at the secondhand rows as his new space, and he's working on that right now. So I do believe he has space. It's just a timing issue and getting the necessary
Okay,
permits.
thank you.
Yep.
And then my next question is regarding the carpet. What does it look like now?
The carpet in the Verkulen building,
yes.
yeah, it's worn and needs to be replaced. We walked through with the staff as well as with F&O personnel to look at that. Because yes, we're trying to be very conscious of our other big project for the VERC and not spend too many dollars in renovating that facility. But the one area that we did think, especially, that was where we ran the vaccination clinic, as well as other areas for COVID, so it's pretty worn out. So we would like to get the carpet replaced over at the VERC. But otherwise, they don't need it to be painted. There's some minor internal changes with storage areas and that F&O is going to be working on
Okay.
at that site.
Got it. I look forward to seeing it tomorrow.
Oh,
It would have been
yes.
helpful.
Yes,
to
thank
see
you.
it. Thank you. Thank you,
Didn't
Chair.
that carpet go in 1953 when it was built?
Commissioner Kraft?
Sorry, 25 years old.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question on the dollar amounts here. So about 120,000 is for the carpeting, and then there's 425,000 for unforeseen expenses. Where did you guys come up with the 425?
It's a money question, Mr. Schmidt. Oops.
I can do it. So this,
Come on, Vicki.
We had a line item in the capital plan, that back then we weren't sure where everybody was moving to, so it was just labeled as juvenile court, because that was a potential site to move, some of these programs and or others. And there was $4.5 million, so it was a percentage of the 4.5. And again, anything over 35,000, we would come back to the board. This just gives us some of that pre-approval to get smaller items.
Right, I just
through.
wondered where you pulled that number from. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just, Vicki, if I may, I want to piggyback on Commissioner Kraft. So we're spending $250,000 for commercial floor covering, which leaves us approximately $300,000 left for miscellaneous items. Can you detail, I mean, that's a lot of money. What are we talking about, detail items?
Sure, the $250,000
Of the
is
300,000? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. 250 is for the carpeting.
250,000 is the line item in F&O's current overall county budget
All
for
right.
all carpeting throughout the county.
Got it.
So, taking into consideration timing and the provisions of $35,000 to come back to the board going out to bid, what Ben and his team were able to do was they found a consortium bid for carpeting that was already done, and that's in your packet. So what we're looking at is Conventional Carpet, who's our normal installer, can honor that price. They have the pricing is we're looking for approval for F&O up to, it's actually the 370,000, hang on, to use Conventional Carpet with that pricing to do the VERC project, which is the 120. So that F&O's 250 for all county departments is 250. out of that capital project of 4.5 million that technically we have, we're gonna take 120 out of there to do the VERC. So that gets you to that total of the 350, that we're looking. So, we won't exceed that amount for that and for conventional carpet, but what that'll allow F&O to be able to do is go ahead and do the VERC, but maybe another project comes in smaller, that we'd normally still be over the $35,000 if you look at it cumulatively, right? We've already spent 100 and some thousand for the VERC. Technically, we'd have to come back again for maybe carpet for only $5,000. Well, now we'd like to get blanket approval for the next year, spend up to the amounts in the proposal, and the funding sources are already budgeted in the county's budget for F&O, plus the capital fund for the MCA moves.
So our safeguard is at 35,000 threshold.
Yes.
And answered my question. Any other speakers? I have Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. Vicky, did I understand you right that this new move is going into the space that was used in the building for the vaccine clinic?
Yes, we actually have consolidated our COVID operations effective as of March 31st, and our vaccination clinics for COVID, and as we knew them in the large space within the VERC, and then also over at Southwest Majestic stopped. And we are now just running normal county health department immunizations out of half of that space at the VERC. That worked out well for them. So we'll keep doing COVID vaccinations, but they have really been integrated with normal county vaccines, if you will, going into our normal processes. So they will occupy half of that space, and then MCA will move into the other half of that space.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vicky. I see no other speakers. I have a motion in support. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thanks, Vicky. Thank you, Mr. Schmiegel. Item 11 is public participation. This is an opportunity for public. We did A and B.
Oh, you did A and B together, sorry. I missed that. Thank you.
Okay. Item 11 is public participation. This opportunity for public participation is for those who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issues. Look at that stomach.
He's talking about you down there.
You better pull it down. I thought maybe you were advertising.
It's all you, Jamie. What a sight.
This is public participation. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any subject? Seeing and hearing none, I will close out public participation. We'll go to item number 12, which is commissioners' comments. Commissioners, if you would. I have Commissioner Hall who would like to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I didn't want to get into a back and forth with Kevin. I'm going to ask Kyle to send this letter to all of you. It's from Martha T. Berry, signed by Kevin. The subject matter is budgetary amount for HVAC and investments. This letter has two purposes. First, to communicate our desire to invest our cash and earn more interest through a CD laddering strategy. Second is to establish a restricted fund for Martha T. Berry facility capital expenditures to include all facility improvements, furnishings, and fixtures. What you may find interesting is the statement, we would like to ladder $3 million into CDs, then have the rest in a high-yield interest-saving account over a long period of time. The $2 million allocated will be placed into a high-interest-bearing account by the county treasurer and be designated as Martha T. Berry Restricted Capital Fund for improvements. We're looking to get this done quickly to begin earning interest to help yield the fund. Please let me know if there's anything else you need. My goal is to have the $2 million in a high interest bearing savings account by March 1st, 2023. I recall correctly, when he appeared in front of us, the need for an HVAC system and a roof was critical and immediate. Now you want high-interest yield bonds over a long period of time. That shows you where the money was going. I commend them for doing that. That's a smart business practice. At this writing of this letter, we did not know the $6.2 million was received. But there were plans being made on how to invest it.
What's the date of that letter, Commissioner Hall?
Pardon me?
The date of that letter?
January 21st, 2023.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Commissioners, anybody else want to speak? I don't see any on the board.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Hall, supported by Commissioner Nard to adjourn. Please vote. Thank all of you. Appreciate it.
Good
See you
meeting,
tomorrow.
Chairman.